I just got done watching Netflix's Marilyn Monroe movie titled Blonde. This stars Ana De Armas as the icon Marilyn Monroe, one of the biggest Hollywood stars of all time, and this movie is just okay. It's not great. It's well made, but it is a tragedy how the choices in this movie possibly would. All about the tragic life of Marilyn Monroe. A look at the rise of fame and the epic demise of this actress. It's a fictionalized look at all of that. And in a way, her own nightmare. We live inside Marilyn Monroe's nightmare throughout this movie. And I'm still interested and very excited to talk about this movie because I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts. So make sure to leave your thoughts down below, as well as hit that like and subscribe button if you also love talking movies, because that's what I love doing on this channel on a daily basis. And this is definitely going to be one that we're going to be up for debate. So, Blonde. I do want to start with my pros. Even though I really did not like this movie all too much, I think it is a well-made movie. And on a technical level, this movie is honestly a damn achievement. A lot of the frames, the usage of cinematography, specifically in a lot of the different designs within filters, black and white, switching to color, and the messaging and themes within all those, and the way that they use different lenses, and even the ratio. All of those elements are never distracting, nor are they bothersome. They all add and give this mesmerizing feel to this nightmare-fueled storytelling device that they really do with Marilyn Monroe. And on that technical achievement, it is brilliant. And that's why I go so far to say, while this movie is a tragedy about Marilyn Monroe, this movie is a tragedy too, because every great idea you have in this film, there's something that really depicts it and brings it back a whole notch, a whole letter grade for me personally. And I know there's going to be people who really like this movie. There's going to be people who absolutely hate this movie. There's going to be people who are like me who can appreciate what they tried doing. But in the end of the day, I find this movie to feel a little bit disrespectful towards Marilyn Monroe in certain ways that it portrayed her life, since this is a fictional depiction of it. And I know I'm getting into my cons. I'm going to try and steer away from that for right now. But truly enough, going back, the technical achievement of this is incredible. The production design as well is immaculate, and I was really stunned by almost every single sequence, besides something that happens to do with the fetus. I didn't really love that element, but besides that, everything else in here was stunning. I was, again, mesmerized within every single scene and frame. This is one of the best looking movies of 2022. So on that par, you can look at this movie and be like, damn, that is a work of art at times. But the reason to see this movie is Ana De Armas. Ana De Armas as Marilyn Monroe is one of the best damn performances of this entire year. Now, sometimes, yes, her accent slips here and there, but this is an iconic role that very much she gets the finite details of the dialect of Marilyn Monroe's voice at times to even her mannerisms. And Marilyn Monroe is an icon star. I mean, she's been through pop culture, movies, documentaries, all sorts of things like that. So if you've ever studied film and seen tons of Marilyn Monroe movies, even when you see her on frame for the first time, you're like, that's not Marilyn Monroe, that's Ana De Armas. But very fastly, it sinks right into the role, and you completely forget that this is Ana De Armas. The first 5 to 10 minutes, I completely forgot that this was Ana De Armas, and I just said, that is Marilyn Monroe. She really brings it to life, and even when her accent slips out and in, it's so minor that I completely forgot even within the scenes. It's typically anytime she's kind of yelling or arguing, but in those moments in particular, it slips away and comes right back. At times, Marilyn Monroe is a very silent figure, and a lot of her discomfort, a lot of her emotion is built within inside her face. And that is one thing that I really felt in this movie, was the pain of Marilyn Monroe, the pain and tragedy that she feels throughout her entire life, and the emotion of just wanting to feel love, the despair, all of those elements you feel mixed in Ana De Armas' performance. And again, she gives one of the best performances of 2022 so far. And I loved it. If you want to see this movie for a fantastic performance, you will absolutely get that. But her performance is worthwhile. And honest to God, everyone else in here is really good, but it is her show. Like, if you look at Adrien Brody, or Julianne Nicholson, or Bobby Cannavale, or Sarah Paxton, or you can just go on and on and on throughout all the actors. Everyone does a really good job, but this is Ana De Armas' story. This is Ana De Armas as Marilyn Monroe, and that is the reason to see this movie. And that's kind of where my pros end. So let's talk about my issues. A lot of my issues reside in a lot of different ways. I knew going into this that the adaptation of this, the book that this movie is based on, is not the greatest material when it comes down to Marilyn Monroe, and that there are a lot of fans of the book, but there's also a lot of hate for the book. But I still didn't leave that going in here. I went in optimistic, wanting to be that one person that comes out and being like, this is a masterpiece, this is one of the best movies of the year. But even then, as I walked out, I'm like, that wasn't bad. It was okay. But as I was driving home, I started sitting on it more, and there are certain scenes in this film that I am going to talk minor spoilers in here. I'm not going to say what happens or in the scenes, but just particularly certain situations. There's certain sexual situations that Marilyn Monroe gets herself into. And in those moments, particularly two, I did not think they were needed to be in here. And those were the two reasons that probably this movie was NC-17. There's nudity in here, but I've frankly seen more nudity in certain other films too. It's particularly these two sexual scenes that I feel like could have been done in a different way. And for me, felt disrespectful towards an icon like Marilyn Monroe. Now, whether these things happened in real life or did not, or did or didn't, that can be up for the debate of what should be portrayed here and what shouldn't be. But for me, it didn't feel great. And I understand the ideas that they're kind of going for here. Again, this is a nightmare-filled adventure for Marilyn Monroe. You see how she was thrown around, how she was used, how the public used her, how men used her, how just Hollywood itself pulled her in and spit her right back out. And it is heartbreaking. But that's the tragedy of her. And I think there was a more respectful way that you could have told this story, as well as the depiction of this story. There is very ins and outs of this entire story that I never felt was totally cohesive. And at sense, it felt like Dominik was trying to be a little bit too artsy for me. And I like artsy-fartsy movies. And Dominik has some good ideas in here. Just, for me, I just never felt like they were executed completely well. A lot of it goes down to the way that he tells the story. A lot of it comes down to the way that it was edited. And for 2 hours and 45 minutes, I feel like there was a really good story in here within the 2 hours. But certain situations are just sat on too long. Certain moments are depicted not well. And certain moments are just flat out rushed. It just continues to be a brutalizing smack in the face at times as you watch this movie. And by the time I left, I went, I will never watch that movie again. And it's not even one that I would fully recommend to anyone. But it's one that I'm going to think about. And not in a good way. I'm going to think about the cinematography. I'm going to think about Ana De Armas' wonderful performance. But I really am going to center on, why did this movie have to be made in this way? Why couldn't we adapt the ideas from that book into a different way? And speaking with one of my friends who had read the book, who was very indifferent on the book, I started telling him certain situations in the book, and he starts telling me, yes, that's in there, yes, that's in the book, yes, that's in the book. And he tells me the way it's depicted, and it just feels the exact same way. It feels like they really did go for a true adaptation, and I just really think that Ana De Armas' talents were wasted in a biopic like this. It's not a full biopic. They try to add this horror tendency to it, and again, that's a really good idea. I think a movie that actually did this very well was Spencer last year with Kristen Stewart. I think that performance in that film really addressed that icon in a certain way. And I kind of wish they would have done the same thing with Marilyn Monroe here. Again, it's going to have its fans, but I left this film feeling gross. And not in a way that is great for the way that the movie was made. Like I mentioned, Blonde is a tragic film, displaying the tragedy of Marilyn Monroe in a way that's some ways a horror movie and others just a slog of a film that never really finds its footing with the story. I found Dominik to have some great ideas in here, but just none of them to really execute correctly into the way that feels respectful to an icon, as well as just respectful to the fans of her. It doesn't tell a cohesive story here, and I get what he was trying to do in here, and I get it was segments of her life, but it was the most depressing parts of it. And I see what Ana De Armas was going for within her performance. I think she brings to life Marilyn Monroe in an iconic way and delivers one of the most incredible performances of the year. And the cinematography, like I mentioned, is mesmerizing. But I never found myself fully engaged within this story. Every single time I was starting to get to there, something pulled me right back out. Were some of the sexual manners that happen in this movie where I was like, this is going on way too long. I don't know why this is happening. I understand that they're trying to put us into the feelings of how Marilyn Monroe may have felt. But truly enough, none of us know how she felt because she's not here anymore. And sadly, she tragically died way too early in her career. So I think these are things that people can take into perspective, people can take guesses on, but I just don't feel like this movie was needed to be made. And in the end of the day, at 2 hours and 45 minutes, it's a brutal watch. In some way, shape, and form. You might be a fan of it. I was not. So overall, I'm going to give Blonde a D-. Very much hurts my heart to be giving this movie that low of a score. I was really excited for this movie, but I ended up just finding it to be a tragedy, and it's not something that I fully loved. And I think, again, people will find it to be their cup of tea, but for me it was not. But let me know down below what your guys' thoughts are. Thank you so much again for watching this. You guys are really all the best. This was a very tough review to do because I had a lot of thoughts leaving the theater. I sat on them for quite a while before even filming this. I reshot this review quite a few times. I messed up quite a few times because it's something different, and I really don't know how to feel fully about this movie. I'm not even really conflicted. It's just this movie attacked me in some ways that I just didn't feel great about. But let me know down below what your guys' thoughts are. Again, hit that like and subscribe button, and of course, until next time, stay classy.